Okay. Hello, my name is Marlon Aleister, and today we're going to be talking about how I learned Korean fluently. I feel very confident in saying fluently. I've gone back and forth about that for years, but I can say with confidence now I feel fluent. Today I'm going to talk about how I learned Korean, why I learned Korean, what books I used to learn Korean, where I learned Korean, and how much it all kind of costs generally. Just so we can put it on the table, I've used a lot of books, like more. This is not even half of it. I think you could do with a lot less of this, but this is just kind of half of what I did. When people are learning a language, they are jumping into a world of books and resources and things that people don't really know how to use and what to use, and there's a lot of questions asking of how can I optimize the spending and learning and time, right? And those are things I'm going to try and talk about my experience, because honestly this is the first language that I feel like I've gone from start to finish. I feel very confident in Korean. I can have conversations of all degrees. I think the reason why is because I put time and effort and money and everything into this. So I first came to Korea about 3 years ago, 2020 December, and I did not start learning immediately. I don't know why I did that, but I should have started learning immediately or even before I got here, but I didn't. But then shortly thereafter, I decided that I wanted to invest more time into living in Korea and seeing if it was right for me. So I needed to learn the language, right? And so what I started off with first, and I would recommend, I would honestly just say I don't know. This is not a hate video to talk to me in Korean at all, I promise, but talk to me in Korean. This is what I started with, and I think this is what a lot of Korean learners start with, is talk to me in Korean. And by no means do I think it's a bad book. I don't think that this book is bad. I went through it. I made my notes. I did things that, like, I really tried to use this book to its fullest potential, and I think that I did. I got up to like the third book in the series, and it felt like a waste of my time. It felt like, especially looking back now, especially looking back at how far I've come and looking all the way from 1 to 10 through these books, it feels like, personally, I just think that there's better resources than Talk to Me in Korean. I think it babies you way too heavily. I think if you finish this book series, all the workbooks, all from 1 to 10, everything, I think it would probably take you to like a middle beginner level of language learning. And for Korean, that's not really high at all. Like, you would not be able to have many conversations at all. Personally, don't think that that's Talk to Me in Korean's fault at all. I think Korean is a very difficult language to learn for English speakers, because there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of grammar that goes into learning a language, and especially Korean as well. So for my personal experience, what I would say is, looking back, their free resources like on YouTube and things are amazing. I think that is a very beautiful thing for language learners. And in general, I would say it's about too expensive. It's around like $10 to $15 per book. But if you're thinking about, you're getting 2 to 3 books per level, but then you multiply that times 10. That's a lot of money. As a resource, I just think that there's better resources out there. And for example, I would say that the university books like yonsei or hanyang or sogang, the university books of Korea, are much better, much quicker. They get into the language very quickly. These are books that they use at language programs when you're studying in Korea. And these are books that I used to learn. I did attend some language programs in Korea. After I was studying this one, I realized that I wanted to really get into the language. I feel like Talk to Me in Korean is good for introduction, but 10 levels for an introduction feels like a lot. I just wish Talk to Me in Korean had much more in-depth knowledge of the Korean language from level 1 to 10. That's a long time for it to be only the beginning. Whereas these books, they dive into it. If you're going from level 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, it is a big jumps, major jumps. So you can just study one of these books for months, like literally months. You can study just one book for months. If you're talking about these university books, they have knowledge jam-packed into here. And what's really awesome is that if you find a grammar point, you can look up that grammar point online, and there's a lot of free resources in English or other languages that are explaining those grammar points that if you don't understand it completely, you can look further into it through other resources as well, not only this book itself. One thing about these books is that they're only in Korean. So you do have to have a kind of general idea of the Korean language at first, but it's really good because, I mean, it starts off very easily. There's listening points, it teaches you how to read Hangul. And then if you go a few pages later, you're already learning grammar. You're already jumping into making sentences from the words that you used when you were learning the alphabet. And this is just level 1. Level 1 by the end of level 1 in this book, they're expecting you to be able to read stuff of this length. And this may look long, but it's honestly not. And you will. If you're studying this book very well, you will be able to read all of this, know what it means, and say it out loud all by yourself. These university books are something that I think people could really utilize in learning Korean, specifically Korean. I'm not sure about other languages, but these university books have done wonders for me. Now, I don't want to keep bragging on Talk to Me in Korean, but I want to show you the difference of, this is the end of the book. This is where I am at the end of level 2. This is the level 2 book, right? These couple of sentences, very short sentences with very few words. Like I said, Talk to Me in Korean is a very good resource for extremely very beginner language learners of Korean. But I think it's just too many books for it to be beginner. It's level 1 to 10 is, I would say, very beginner still language learning of Korean. That's a lot of money. This is one of the most popular language learning books for Korean, and I'm gonna stop talking about it now because I think I ragged on it enough. But I want to talk about the main way that I learned Korean to the point where I am now, where I would say that I feel confident to say that I am fluent. That is language schools. This is something that I honestly never even thought of as an option when I was living in America. I never even heard of language schools. I mean, maybe I heard about it, but it was not something that I ever thought of as a reality, something that I could do myself. I always thought it would be either too expensive or it would be inaccessible to me for some reason. It was just something that I never processed of being able to do myself. But all I had to do was use my high school transcript, pay the fee, and that was pretty much it. I signed up for the visa to stay in Korea for 6 months to learn the language just from those small documents. If you're interested in learning about that, leave a comment. I can talk about that more later, how to sign up for a language school, but it really was so easy. It was just the money that was the biggest issue. But even then, it's about like $1,200 per semester, which is really cheap comparatively. Per hour, if you're calculating. Those classes are from Monday to Friday, from 9 a.m. to 1 or 2 p.m. It sounds expensive, $1,200, but it really, if you're calculating per hour, it's so cheap. I think those programs are what got me to the level I am now of my language learning. I think I feel very confident in my language ability, and it's because of those courses. When I first started taking those courses, I knew nothing, and now after I graduated those courses, I use that knowledge. Even now to this day, I'm using that knowledge to learn new things in my daily life living here. From learning Korean through those programs, I got translating jobs, I've done tutoring jobs, I've done so many jobs that focused around Korean and English translation or learning, and I wouldn't have those opportunities if I didn't know Korean or if I didn't study at a university. And those programs, honestly, by far are your biggest hope of ever being fluent in Korean or an Asian language, honestly, ever. And especially if you're young, if you have time, if you're in your teens. What I did when I was young, my parents did not pay for this experience. I paid all of this myself. All of this happened because I worked for it. I was working my butt off since I was young to save money to do something like this eventually. So if you're young now, if you're watching this and you're in your teens or even your early 20s, if you save up for about a year or two, you can really get to the point of living in Korea for about a year. If you have no responsibilities, if you just want to take a year off to just learn a language, live in a country like Korea, or there's other countries that do this as well. It is something that I honestly never thought that I was gonna be able to do, but after I did it, I want to tell like the whole world, you should try it. I think it's a beautiful experience, and I wish I could do it again. But there is higher level Korean classes, but man, they're really hard. Maybe someday, I don't know. I'm not gonna completely rule it out. But again, I want to reiterate, I did not use any of my parents' money. No one bought my plane ticket here. No one paid, like all of my money that I worked in different jobs, serving jobs, all of this happened because I wanted it and I put the effort into language learning. I came across the world and I wanted to live here, and I thought, if I'm gonna live here, I need to learn the language and I need to be able to understand the culture. I think anybody can do that if they have the desire to, if they have the time. And of course, if you have children, if you're really attached to your family, if you have a relationship that you don't want to break up to go a year in Korea, it's understandable. There's books that you can do on your own, and there's courses you can do on your own. But if possible, the language programs are by far the most effective reason why I am fluent to this day. But there may even be language courses in your country, especially if you're living in a bigger city. I would look into language courses in your country. They're probably cheaper than here. Immersion in general. Immersion is so important. Watching Korean media, reading Korean books, looking at the Korean newspaper. These are things that really helped me. So books. Look into the university books. I would say if you're not an ultra mega super beginner of language learning, Talk to Me in Korean is not necessarily the most effective because I think it's just getting you to like a middle beginner level after hundreds and hundreds of dollars. The books, maybe just go for the first two, see if you like it or not. If it's not for you, it's like I said, university books, hanyang, yonsei, sogang. These books are by far the best option that I've ever seen. And I studied these books. I have like so many of these. I have so many of these notebooks. Like, is this one filled? I have so many of these notebooks from when I was studying. Korean is a beautiful language, and I hope that if you have any questions, you feel free to ask in the comments, particularly what name books or whatever you're asking for. If you're looking into signing up for a language program, I'll maybe make another video in the future how I did it and where and how easy it can be. But until then, thank you for watching this video. I'll continue to make my life in Korea content and language learning and cultural experiences and things that I do in the country here. So if you have any questions or comments or things you want to see, leave it in the comments and subscribe, and good luck learning. You got this.